All right, good day, guys. Welcome to the second episode of the Cycleways podcast. We recorded an episode yesterday. We don't know if we'll air it because it was a bit of an experiment, but it went quite well. Either way, we're here today. My name is Thomas again. I'm one of the mechanics of Cycleways. Joining me is Matt,
Hello.
Jazz,
Hey, how's it going?
and Sam.
Hey, kia ora everyone. How's everyone doing?
No worries, guys. So with this episode, we thought we'd kind of start to give you guys a background of some of the staff, kind of all the floor staff, excluding me. I'm more in the workshop. But we thought we'd, kind of talk about the background, what we do in the cycling industry, what we do at Cycleways. So I think we'll start with Matt, obviously being the owner. How did Cycleways start? What's your background?
Well, my background goes back a long way. I started in the cycle industry in '86. As a young fellow, I was 14, so that's probably giving my age away. But I guess in those, I was thinking about that before. 14 sounds young to be having a part-time job, but in those days, kids were leaving school at 16. You're off, getting a job at 16, leaving school. So it wasn't that early, I suppose. But yeah, I started at 14 at a place called Norm Lambert's, and he was a bit of a guru in the cycle industry. I grew up in a small country town in New South Wales, Australia, and so he was a bit of a legend in the industry, and I was kind of lucky enough to work under him for a long time. I worked in that business I left to go overseas in '95, so I worked I went full time when I was 18, so 1990, as a mechanic. And Norm's background was he started in the 40s, basically in those days bikes were all about transport, and they were all handmade, hand built, and so I learned a lot from him. And then '95, I went overseas. I was overseas for about 18 months. I did the UK, Europe stint. Then I met a girl. I came back to Christchurch, and I worked at Fleet Cycles for 2 years in Christchurch. Then I went back to Australia, and I did a stint at Favourite Cycles in Manly. I was there for about 18 months. And then by that stage, I'd maybe worn out my welcome in the cycle game. I'd been doing it for a long time. I felt like I needed to try something different. So I had a hiatus for probably about 6 years. I did something else. And then during that time, I was kind of always drawn back to the cycle industry. I was always riding bikes, but in my spare time, I was fixing bikes. And it was just a natural evolution, I suppose, for me. I had a niche that I wanted to scratch as far as having my own business, and I thought I could give it a go. It wasn't easy, it was a hard decision to make, but I took probably 18 months of planning, writing business plans and talking to mentors and kind of coming up with a structure for what Cycleways really is fundamentally all about. Always based it on, it's always on service. And I remember, yes, you talk to business advisors and business coaches, and they're going, "What's your point of difference?" I used to say it's service, and they've gone, "No, there's no such thing," And I said, "Well, I kind of tend to disagree." I said, "I think that's what the industry lacks is service." And so fundamentally, it's always been the basis of who we are. It's in our DNA. Then that was 2000 November 2006. We opened the doors. It was me, and my wife at the time, Anna, and we had Morgan. How was Morgan? She was 3. And we had Braithen on the way. He was due in January, so this is November, so he was due in January. So there was a lot going on, and anyway, we opened the doors and away we went. And it was, as I say, just me, and it was a lot of big hours because I painted and prepped and made and built basically the store to start with, and then I kind of did it all on my own, and we started, and we did really well. I think I opened at the right time. It was the timing was right. We then had 2 years before the GFS, the global financial crisis, or GFC. So yeah, we sort of established ourselves, and it was always about the workshop, and that's how we kind of built the business from the workshop. And retail kind of came as a result of that. We developed relationship with customers and through the workshop, and then we grew, and it just grew, and then staff came on, and here we are today. So that's pretty much how it started.
It's a good story. It's interesting how you say they took a hiatus. I feel as if a lot of people I hear in the bike industry kind of take a step back. I remember one of the Specialized reps said something to me really funny that always stood by me, because he left the cycle industry and came back to work for Specialized. He said, "Yeah, we always try and leave. You always get pulled back."
Yeah, I think it's in your blood. It's just you kind of really get it's a lifestyle, I guess. As much as anything, it's the way that you eat, sleep, and breathe. But yeah, you definitely. Whilst I was out of it, I was still very much involved. I was still following trends and following what was happening in the industry, and I was still very much involved. Not only riding, but really actually understanding kind of what was occurring in the industry too. So yeah, definitely it's in your blood. It's a passion. It's a calling. I reckon in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Awesome. What about you, Jazz? What's your story?
Yeah, so my sort of work story started. I started out in the kitchens, working behind the stoves. Just about 10 years cooking throughout New Zealand and over in Europe, England. But yeah, I travelled back. Sort of 3 years working over there. Travelled back to New Zealand. Had a flat. A couple of my flatmates were really into riding and triathlon, so they sort of taught me into buying a bike, and I sort of fell in love with the sport really, and dabbled with triathlon for a season. But I thought cycling, was definitely my passion, or second passion at the time, and wanted to, I suppose, just learn a little bit more about how to fix my own bike, and sort of just immerse myself in the industry a bit more. So I got a part-time job just on a Saturday while still cooking full time, just to gain a bit more knowledge. And I just love working with people in the industry, helping people through the journey, like the bike shop trade did to me when I bought my bike. Just love talking bikes with people and getting them started on my passion. Eventually, I decided I got offered a full-time job at Chain Reaction Cycles in Riccarton back then. I just sort of had enough of cooking at that time, and it was a stage of my life I just wanted to change. So I had about 5 years working at Chain Reaction, and we opened up the Morehouse Ave Specialised store, and it was good experience, really good fun. Just at the time I still felt like I needed a break, and as Matt pointed out, we hired us away from the bike trade for a couple of years. Did a few other sales roles, but just got back into the bike trade after we had our first child. Just working part time, and it was just a really good fit for me and my lifestyle, and just getting back into just immersing myself in that industry. I just love talking to people, love selling bikes, and just helping people on their journey, into their new lifestyle. I did about 2 years stint at Hub Cycles in Tower Junction, and then one thing I've missed about was working with Specialized as a product. So I'd spoken with Matt a few years prior about a role working at Cycleways, and we sort of just put it on ice until something came up, and then I joined the crew just on about 3 years ago now. I love my role at Cycleways. Working in the sales floor, working in the background just with computer systems and software, and just it's another sort of good hobby of mine I really enjoy. That's pretty much my journey into Cycleways, really.
a good journey.
Yeah.
It's a good
Bit of
journey.
the village bicycle of Christchurch bike shops there, Jazz. Seem to have worked everywhere.
Yeah.
You only done a couple. It was just what, hub and chain.
Yeah. The third bike shop now, but it's,
So I
yeah,
think we
they're
met.
all,
We must have met in the States, did we? I think.
yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a few beers and
It's at
had
Copper
a
Mountain.
ride.
Copper Mountain. Copper
That was the
Mountain.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a cool trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I think, yeah, it's good to sort of get a bit of variety, but you find your place where you enjoy, and you should stick with it, I think.
And I think you're right with when you're saying about the specialised family or the specialised kind of. That's when you think back to Copper Mountain and those types of trips, it's just a good crew, eh? They're a good bunch of guys.
Yeah, it's just an extension from your own retail store, really.
Yeah.
You kind of the time I spent away from the specialised family, you kind of missed it, and just having chats on the phone to the guys, and you feel like it's the other retail stores feel like they're very singular. It's all just about that one store, whereas I think working at Cycleways, and with Specialised as the main partner, it's like one big family, eh?
Mm.
You're sort of working together, not against one another.
Totally. Yeah.
Definitely understand that. What about you, Sam? Your story?
Oh, my story. Oh, well. Well, as far as background goes, well, I could go on until the cows come home, I suppose. But just a quick short rundown. Well, I come from a very small town called Darjeeling, and it's in India. Basically, I grew up in the foothills of the third highest mountain in the world, so I was exposed to the outdoor recreation and climbing and that sort of thing at a very early age. So climbing mountains, being outdoors was always there as I grew up and when I finished school and all that. I moved to New Zealand, I think in 2008, simply because I was just sick and tired of what I was doing back home. I've done all sorts of random jobs. Before I moved to New Zealand, I was in a corporate world. I used to work for a company called IBM. Not many people would know of that company now. It used to be a very big computer company.
I remember it.
Based in the US. So there you go. Yeah.
Am I showing my age?
So yeah.
I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, it used to be one of it was pretty much like Apple now.
I didn't even realise they weren't around any longer.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah. There you go.
So yeah, I worked for them for 5 years, pretty much. Real corporate. You go to office like all suited, booted, and that sort of jazz. So yeah, I pretty much got sick and tired because at the back of my mind, coming from a background where I used to be, outdoors all the time and used to love climbing and all that. So I always had that calling, So one fine day I decided, nah, stuff this. All right, I'm heading up on to the hills. So at that point, the best thing to do for me was actually to move away from back home and try and do something away from home. And it was actually Google, when I sort of Googled and said adventure, and I Googled adventure tourism. The first thing that popped up on Google was New Zealand. And I was like, hang on, okay. And I was actually trying to study adventure pretty much. And New Zealand popped up, and then after that, 2008, I landed and then studied adventure tourism management. As soon as I finished my course, I got offered a job and started working as a guide. So my background has pretty much been adventure tourism, really. Worked as a nature guide, cave guide, glacier guide, and eventually, we decided, me and my wife, we decided we'd move to Christchurch, and then so that's where cycling began pretty much for me, because prior to that, working as a guide in the West Coast and working as a guide down in Fiordland, I was really into climbing, and I was really into trail running. Trail running was my sport. I used to love ultramarathons, off-road ultramarathons. That's pretty much what I used to do. And whilst doing that, obviously your legs take quite a bit of beating, and my knee almost sort of gave up on me pretty much. So my physio suggested that I should take a break from running for at least 6 months or so, and then and then when I asked my physio that, okay, well, running and climbing is all I've ever done, and that's the sport I enjoy, she suggested that I should pick up cycling. So okay, fine. So went ahead and bought a bike. I still remember Rockhopper was my first bike that I bought. 29-inch wheel. Knew nothing about bikes back then.
You got to start somewhere.
Yeah. So I still remember I paid 1,100 for that bike, and geez, I thought that was super expensive. Anyway, I bought it from Outside Sports and down south in Wanaka, and they were pretty good actually. So so that was my first bike, and I started riding pretty much, and crashed a lot. And I still do. But at one point I crashed so many times that I almost put me off biking, and I actually stopped biking for a bit, and then I got back on, and then again, and then finally when we moved to Christchurch, I was just at Tannery with my wife, and I came across Cycleways, and while she was shopping inside the tannery, I was like, okay, you carry on shopping, I'm going to go out and check out this bike shop. And that's when I pretty much met Matt, and I was quite blown away by the service and attention to detail and all of that. And then started coming to Cycleways to service my Rockhopper, and
we got to know Claire quite well.
Yeah. So obviously I was working long hours, and Claire was the only person who had a little bit of time who could drop my bike off for service. And so Claire made visits to Cycleways very regularly. I think almost once a week. So because I was crashing so much and I was destroying my bike pretty much, but the boys looked after me pretty good, and it came to a point when I decided, well, I should upgrade to a full suspension, and Matt looked after me. I was quite impressed. Because obviously me being a small fella, and bike geo and all of that, I did not understand that at all. But it was Matt who sort of explained to me, and we got the right size bike for me. And there was a bit of waiting time for it, but we got there eventually, and then that's that. And one fine day I got made redundant and I didn't have a job, and I was desperate for a job. I did all sorts of random jobs, and then I just walked up to Matt with my CV and said, all right, this is what I've got, and if there's a position available, please let me know. And Matt took me under his wing, and that was very kind of me. And here we are today. Well, so it's been almost 4 years now, Matt.
I think so. Yeah.
So So I knew nothing about the cycling industry, and since I picked up cycling, my first Rockhopper, I actually haven't looked back. I hardly run nowadays.
Sorry about that, guys. We just had some technical difficulties. Our group chat just ran out, but we're back again. Sam, what were you saying?
Yeah, I think we got cut off when I was talking about my running background and how I got into cycling. Basically, after my injury, picked up cycling and didn't look back. Enjoying mountain biking, cycling in general, very much. And like the rest of the boys said, it's a bit of a lifestyle choice, really, and passion. Yeah, so to be in this industry, you've got to be passionate about it. And I think it's the passion that drives us and drives Cycleways. So everybody, right down from the juniors to the sales team to the mechanics and everybody, we're really passionate about it. And it sort of reflects in our work as well. And so that's pretty much about me, really. Yeah.
No, I always find it really interesting about people's industry stories and where they came from. I'll quickly run through my story. It's not overly long. I'm quite young. I only finished school, I think, a year and a bit ago. I basically finished school and decided I wasn't ready to go to university. I managed to get a job in a shop that I had no idea who they were. It just so happened to be a specialized shop, and it was run by what is now one of my very close friends. In Brisbane, Australia. I worked there for the year, was trained as a mechanic. I'd always, kind of played with my bike. I think by the time I started working there, I'd essentially fully disassembled my road bike by that point and put it back together again over different times. But I finished the year, decided to move to New Zealand to do something different. Didn't really know whether I'd be working in a shop or, to be doing something different. Managed to stumble across Cycleways and was offered a part-time position kind of to fill in for Matt when he was injured, and then was offered a full-time position for the year, and I've been working there as, continuing my apprenticeship for mechanicking. Not that there's really a formal qualification or anything like that. No, I've been definitely really enjoying it. It's a very different experience to the other shop that I've worked in. Pretty out of my depth in the mountain biking point of view, but it is definitely a really good learning point. Now, I will ask you guys a really quick question because it's something that I've struggled with, even though I've only been in the industry for a short time. But definitely staying motivated to ride a bike. You kind of work on bikes all day. You talk to people about the Tour de France and the mountain biking racing and all that, and you kind of get home and I don't even want to look at my bike, let alone go out and do training on it. So how do you guys stay motivated to actually ride your bike and enjoy bikes for what they are, which is not a mode, not just enjoyment really. So
I'll jump in here. I'll kick it off. I think it's probably a good question. I've definitely been through stages, of being completely immersed in riding my bike. I definitely, when I first opened Cycleways, I didn't ride my bike much at all. I had 2 years where all I did was work, and then I kind of got back into it. But I think once I was back into it, that's probably the last time where I had a sustained period off the bike. Young family and everything else that didn't help, of course. But I wish I'd had Zwift in those days. That's for sure. Snatch a few wee moments when you can. But I think for me, it's an escape. It's an escapism, I suppose, in a lot of ways. Whilst it's attached to what we do on a daily basis, it's still something, a place that I can go that's kind of if I can clear my head, I can connect with the machine. It depends on what I've always done. I've raced competitively. Ever since I was 16, 17. And that was when I was riding road bikes. But and now I rarely ride a road bike apart from Zwift. But that probably turned when I came to New Zealand. Probably a bit like Sam. I kind of got into mountain biking when I first came to New Zealand. And but yeah, I think for me it's really something I've always done, I suppose. Ever since I was a small kid, I've ridden a bike. I can think back to riding bikes when I was sort of 4 years old. It's what we did. That's how we got around. That's where we rode to our mate's house and we rode around on our bikes. It's just something that I always, again, it's part of who I am. I suppose it's an identity. Whilst I do other things, I've played a lot of sport over the years. I played cricket and I was in athletics and I played softball and I played squash and I played badminton. I've done a lot. I've tried it all, but what has stuck is for me running and biking.
It is definitely like a lifestyle. Like it's kind of. I think Christmas is the best example because I always get someone buys me a present, which is always really nice and I appreciate it. But they'll try and buy me something to do with the cycling industry. And they've no idea, so the present's not going to be like, they'll try and get me something some Hubbard would use or something like that. But it's always kind of like I'm more than a cyclist,
Yeah.
But I guess at the end of the day, like if I didn't have my bike, I don't know what else I would do. So yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, like sport, I've always done sort of sport and always been a very competitive person with sport and a lot of aspects of my life. So I think for me, I just have my own sort of personal goal. Just to do the very best I can. I like the pain of riding. I can just get on my bike and even if I just have a goal for that ride. That's what sort of keeps me motivated riding. Before kids and stuff, I had no problem motivating myself to get out. I just wish I could do more and more and more and more. But after having kids, your priorities change a little bit. And for me now, it's like Matt said, it's just an escape. I can just shut the door, shut the world away, and go join the virtual community of riders and like-minded people, I suppose, and just have some fun, do a social ride, do a race. I find it, like a lot of people, really addictive. I just want to get back on. I suppose it's filling that competitive need I need to ride. For me, it's just more fitness for me. I really like exercising just for staying fit and just trying to get the most out of my body, really.
What about you, Sam?
Yeah, and for me, Zwift is the best thing, eh? It's I'm very thankful that that sort of technology is around now.
Yeah. What about you, Sam?
Pretty much agree with Matt and Jazz. It's something that allows you to escape. For me, riding is it allows me to find peace within myself. Although I've done lots of sports over the years, and I've always been very sporty. Since I was a wee kid, and always heaps of energy and all that. But cycling, for some reason, stuck with me, and it just allows me to escape and find peace within myself. It's almost like a meditation for me, to be honest with you, because cycling is when you're going down, say for example, you're going down a steep, gnarly trail. All you're doing is basically trying to find that flow and focusing on that moment, focusing on that trail. You know what I mean? And that is meditation. And it could only be very well be only for a short period of time, but it is meditation in a way, and you cannot think about anything else, and it's just the trail, you and your bike. Obviously, when I first started off mountain biking, I didn't understand that. That is why I ended up crashing up so many times, I suppose. But over the years, you learn, and you get into the zone, you find your flow, and it's and that's when you find your peace. Yeah. But obviously, the other aspect of it is competition. Participating in events and all that. I like that. I like the energy when you go to a competition, when you go to an event. You can thrive off, positive vibes, and the camaraderie between riders and all of that. So it's always cool, the community aspects and all of that. So that's something I really enjoy, and I like pushing myself. And just about like Jazz said, you try and set your own goals, and you see how much you can push yourself. You see how much you can suffer. And again, get to the finish line. Yeah. So there's almost two faces to cycling, I suppose, in a way. Well, yeah.
Interesting. No worries, guys. That's all we have time for this evening, unfortunately. But we will hopefully have some more podcasts up soon. Hope you guys are enjoying them. No worries, guys. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys.
Good chat.
Yep. Good chat.
Good
Definitely.
banter. No worries,
Yeah,
guys.
good banter. All right.
We'll
Thanks.
see you later.
Ciao,
Cool.
guys.
See you. Cheers.